Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Mitch. Hope you guys have been having a great Tuesday so far and staying safe out there. Severe weather ongoing right now with a couple severe thunderstorm warnings. We'll briefly talk about that here in the beginning of this video. There's a tornado watch out for areas of Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. So we'll quickly mention that and what could happen over the next few hours. But this will be a big time detailed update on this major winter storm that's going to be cranking up probably tomorrow morning for areas of Texas and the Oklahoma, and then it will turn to a significant ice storm for a lot of folks in northern Arkansas, southern Missouri, and then it's going to impact the Ohio Valley and has the potential to be a high impact event for areas of the Northeast and all states in the Northeast. So that's what we're going to break down for you guys. I want to remind you guys it is very hard to mention every single city and every single state. And people have gotten frustrated in the comments saying, why don't you mention this state? Why don't you mention that state? Guys, I make 20 to 30 minute videos. A lot of people who do what I do not make videos that long. So I try to get as detailed with each section of the country as I possibly can, guys, to keep y'all as updated and with as much details as possible. But like I said, I'm not perfect, and I try to keep y'all updated. So if y'all got any questions, just please put in the comments, and I try to answer every single question in the comments the best way I can with as much detail as I can. So that being said, if you guys have not subscribed, definitely consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Hit me up on the social media links. I haven't been as active with making detailed posts of my own. Been very, very busy at work, but I try to retweet every watch, every warning, every National Weather Service discussion that I possibly can. So hit me up on there. It's a great way to stay connected with what's going on with the weather. And most importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over them. It gives others an opportunity to do so too, so we all can look out for one another. If it's unspoken, just put that. So, tornado watch for all the counties shaded in yellow right here. And forgive me, I said Tennessee, but there's technically no counties in Tennessee under a tornado watch, so I did not mean to say that. But this includes Jackson, Mississippi, all the way up to Huntsville, Alabama. So several counties into here. There's a chance for some isolated hail, small hail, a couple tornadoes possible. And really this is because of what's going on right into here as we look at radar scope. Some energy is still left over here just east of Memphis, so there's still some storms around, some heavier rain. A heavy rain threat will continue to set up overnight into Tennessee and Kentucky, so we have to watch out for that, for a lot of heavy rain. Already some hail reports of this cell just north of Florence, Alabama, so we have to watch how these storms are going to develop right here. There is some atmospheric elements in place that could produce a couple tornadoes and spin a couple of these storms up to produce a couple tornadoes. And there is some hail falling in some of these more intense thunderstorms. So just be careful if you're in these areas shaded in yellow. Everybody included in this area. This includes Tuscaloosa also, but not into Birmingham. So be careful out there, guys. As far as watches and warnings, it doesn't have that tornado watch updated on Pivotal Weather's current hazards, but everybody in the pink, winter storm warning. So obviously it's very hard to see which county is yours on this map, but you know, northern Arkansas all under a winter storm warning. There's no ice storm warning just because as soon as there's a mixture of sleet or snow, they only put up the winter storm warnings. They normally only put up the ice storm warnings when there's all freezing rain, or about 90% all freezing rain, from my experiences of seeing ice storm warnings, which are a lot more rare than winter storm warnings. But winter storm warnings up for all of southern Missouri, even into a couple counties of Tennessee, far northwest Tennessee, a couple counties, far western Kentucky, some winter storm warnings. So be careful out there. This is all winter weather advisories in the shading of purple, which are surrounding and diving deep into Texas. It's including Dallas-Fort Worth. This could get extended a little further south, as some of the short-range models are showing some freezing drizzle really deep south. And what's incredible about all this, and of course you got all these watches and warnings up here, this is the ambient weather site. I love looking at this. It's kind of glitchy sometimes. It lags, but every degree you see up here, 41 degrees, 45 degrees, down to the 80s and 90s, these are actually people's personal weather stations. So whether it's sitting on their porch, sitting up on a post in their backyard on top of their house like mine, these are, and mine's on this network too, these are ambient weather stations, which I always recommend. It's a great weather station to have. So it shows you where the Arctic front is. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this, right? And I'm showing you this for a reason, because this is setting the stage for the winter weather. This Arctic air continues to ooze south. You still got 80s near San Antonio. It's hit 90. In fact, I think there's an area down here that hit 100 degrees. You're still in the mid 90s deep in South Texas, but at the same time, you're deep into the 20s in the panhandle of Texas. So Texas is doing crazy Texas things. Texas is a much bigger state than a lot of other states. But this isn't totally uncommon with these Arctic fronts that sag south. But it's incredible to see here. You know, the front has already moved through Dallas-Fort Worth. They're deep into the 40s now, with cold air continuing to drop the temperatures. So let's break down what's going on here. First off, we'll look at the HRRR model. We'll break down the NAM, the GFS, and the European. We're going to break it all down for you, get as detailed as possible. So stick with me if you want to know about your area in the Ohio Valley or the Northeast. Feel free to skip forward to check out your area. You know, it ain't going to bother me one bit. I understand you don't want to hear about Texas if you live in Ohio. I totally get it here. So let's get the rolling here. Long range HRRR model. Let's roll in here. We're getting into the overnight hours. You got those rain and storms still in the deep south over here. But as we're getting into 5, 6 a.m. Central Standard Time, an area of moisture will begin to develop as a low pressure tries to develop here. And then an area of freezing rain and sleet, sleet's in the orange and freezing rain's in the pink, begins to develop, move through areas of south central and southeast Oklahoma as we're getting into later in the morning hours tomorrow morning. So temperatures will be well below freezing in this area, so this will freeze on all surfaces. It's already been below freezing up in these areas for a while now. But you see these pinks starting to develop south of Dallas. Watch as we keep going into the afternoon. You're seeing these little bits of pink showing up deep down in Texas. Remember, these folks were in the 80s today. In fact, some of them still are. By the time you get to this time tomorrow afternoon, some of the same areas that were in the 80s in Texas could be experiencing some freezing drizzle. It's wild. We're going to see how this develops. The NAM has freezing rain even further south, but there's chances that freezing rain could fall very far south into south central Texas. And you know, that's why you only have winter weather advisories, is because as you get into the evening hours tomorrow, there's not a lot of moisture to work with. Just some freezing drizzle, some light freezing rain working its way out there. And then as that other low pressure develops, you start to get more in the way of freezing rain that develops into Thursday morning. So it's going to be a 24, 36-hour event of some light precipitation in Texas. Now you back this up here, and the HRRR model in general just doesn't have a more robust look as far as moisture, but you know, don't focus on that too much. But it brings the freezing rain into northern Arkansas as early as tomorrow late morning and continues to work its way through. Now let's go on and switch off that because we need to focus on these other models too. Same thing with the NAM. You're getting into wee hours of the morning. I'm talking about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Has a much more expansive area of frozen precipitation developing off the 3 km NAM. Has a ton of sleet over here way west of Dallas-Fort Worth. And this begins to work in, and you have freezing rain falling and frozen precipitation in general falling well south of Texas. I'm getting into south central Texas, getting close to places like Austin, getting very close to San Antonio, some freezing drizzle. And this would put people like Dallas more of a sleet freezing rain mixture. But this brings a ton of sleet into areas like Oklahoma City, and it brings more of a sleet fest into northern Arkansas. So I'm not sold on the 3 km happening because it just does not agree with the National Weather Service as far as these crazy as far as how much freezing rain is showing up compared to sleet. If something like the NAM was correct for northern Arkansas and eastern Oklahoma, you really wouldn't get much in the way of all that freezing rain. The freezing rain would stay for areas further south, but it brings a lot of sleet into southern Missouri, northern Arkansas as you're working your way into tomorrow afternoon. And then this moves through, and then the moisture begins to erupt. You have freezing rain even past, south of Little Rock, and then freezing rain getting very far south. So I think the NAM 3 km is a little too cold. But man, this would be a big shocker if it ends up somehow pulling a rabbit out of the hat here and tricking everybody and being a much colder system. But the NAM is very, very cold, and this system starts tomorrow. So, you know, it's continuing through Thursday morning. You have an all-out ice storm in Arkansas, and you have a large coverage of light freezing rain and frozen precipitation in general into Texas. But look at this, getting in the Quad States region, heavier freezing rain showing up for Thursday morning, and this continues. You know, so it works through. We look at the GFS really quick, and we'll kind of roll through this a little bit quicker here. The GFS, which isn't going to be that high resolution here that shows us in-depth look at the precipitation potentially, but heck, the GFS just has a little bit of moisture tomorrow morning in Texas. Not a whole lot. But you can always count on the moisture being a little more robust than what the global models show. That's what I've always noticed. But it pumps out an area of sleet and freezing rain into eastern Oklahoma. Oklahoma City will experience this into northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. Doesn't quite make it to St. Louis per the GFS, but then switches to all freezing rain from northern Arkansas as you get into late tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. And then here comes the other area of moisture develops as freezing rain continues to fall for the entire northern half of Arkansas. And this is when areas like St. Louis, Kansas City could experience some heavy sleet or snow, but at the same time, the freezing rain continues for Oklahoma, northern Arkansas as you get later into Thursday morning, getting into midday Thursday. This is when basically what the GFS is showing is a high level of moisture starts to develop as this secondary low pressure develops, and then you have sleet and freezing rain. Really a lot of sleet showing up in areas like St. Louis and snow, a heavy band of snow in north central Missouri, moving into Illinois. And then it shows areas like central Illinois getting into a lot of heavy snow as you get into Thursday afternoon. This continues, maybe switches to snow for everybody. European, what does the European show for these areas? Well, erupts the freezing rain tomorrow morning as the GFS doesn't like a lot of moisture in this time frame. The European does. It brings a wave of moisture pretty far north. In fact, it reaches it all the way up into the Oklahoma-Kansas state line, brings the freezing rain into areas of Oklahoma City. So you're seeing the differences here, right? For the south central U.S. The GFS shows more sleet for this precipitation. The NAM shows more sleet. The HRRR model, a little bit of sleet and freezing rain. Now the GFS, for the European, for example, for Oklahoma City, is all freezing rain. It doesn't really have much of any moisture down here as far as frozen precipitation, where the short range models show a lot of ice deep into Texas. But as you're getting into Wednesday afternoon, freezing rain begins to move into northern Arkansas, heavy freezing rain, significantly accumulating in this area. Southern Arkansas, freezing rain. But if you're in St. Louis, for example, the European wants you to be more so all snow, maybe a little sleet, as opposed to sleet and freezing rain like the GFS is showing. But this will bring freezing rain into western Kentucky, southern Illinois as you're getting into late tomorrow afternoon and evening. A lot of freezing rain in southeast Missouri, even freezing rain into the far northwest counties of Tennessee. Got to watch out for that little area. Freezing rain continues overnight tomorrow night into into Missouri, and then we get into Thursday morning. And another area of precipitation explodes here. More freezing rain breaks out over Oklahoma, and then more freezing rain into northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. And then areas that saw snow, maybe a little sleet, like for St. Louis, for example, switches more to sleet and freezing rain for the second push of moisture for Thursday afternoon. I know I've been skipping you folks in like Kansas City, for example, but I really think both areas of moisture is going to be all snow for y'all. Y'all are just a little bit too far north to get into the bulk of the heavier moisture. So let's go on and see what the snowfall accumulations look at per the latest National Weather Service update here. A few inches of snow possible in St. Louis. You're getting into Illinois, and I think it's the central to northern half of the state, just a few inches of snow. Now remember, the National Weather Service is always going to budge on these crazy heavy snowfall totals some of the other models are showing. But the ice totals are very significant. This is the National Weather Service, the most reliable source for weather. Not through your Weather Channel app, not your default iPhone app. The National Weather Service showing over a quarter-inch of ice in southeast Missouri, just southeast of Oklahoma City. A lot of ice showing up in Oklahoma City too, but a solid glaze deep into Texas. So the National Weather Service is kind of leaning towards more of a blend of all models almost. So let's get a little bit closer look at Arkansas here in southern Missouri. I mean, look at this. This is the National Weather Service forecasting a half-inch to three-fourths of an inch of ice in northern Arkansas and the Ozarks. Watch out, Jonesboro. Very dangerous situation showing up here. Have your generator ready. And southern Missouri. A lot of ice showing up here. You guys may mix with a little bit more sleet, though. But this is going to be a big ice storm for you folks in northern Arkansas. It really is. So be safe in this area for sure. Blend to all models. Pretty much agrees with the National Weather Service as far as snow, maybe a dusting into Oklahoma. You look at the ice totals for this area, and not as aggressive as the National Weather Service. It really isn't, but still shows the epicenter of that heaviest ice being in northern Arkansas. It really does there. So let's switch to the Ohio Valley. That first system's moving on out, moves into Canada, and then here comes our system. I want to look at the NAM 12KM because one, it goes out further, and two, I feel like it's a decently reliable source, and it's a short-range model. So let's take a look at it. Moves, we're going to try to focus more on the Ohio Valley, not talk so much about Arkansas and Missouri like we just did. We're going to talk about Kentucky, places like this, places like that. The NAM wants to bring ice into the northern sections of Kentucky, far southern areas of Illinois and Indiana as we're working our way into Thursday morning, not tomorrow morning. But I think there's a chance that maybe even into Thursday morning you can have a little bit of light snow into Ohio, Indiana. We'll see how far north this precipitation ends up being Thursday morning. But as you're working your way into areas of later Thursday afternoon, there could be, per the latest NAM, a little bit of moisture already working its way into areas of the northern mid-Atlantic, maybe some ice into Washington, D.C., sleet and ice into Maryland, northern Virginia, areas of northern West Virginia. We're going to see, I don't know if the NAM is correct with this because some of the other models do not have moisture this far east into Thursday afternoon. Now, most models, especially the global and the European, want to bring most of the moisture into this region into Friday morning and overnight Thursday into Friday morning. But, check this out. The NAM brings the moisture, bulks it up as we get into late Thursday afternoon and evening. Ongoing freezing rain in southern Ohio, central Ohio, sleet fest in northern Ohio, getting into Cleveland, a lot of sleet showing up for the latest NAM. Indiana, if you're stopping this in time for Thursday afternoon and evening, you have freezing rain at first, but then the NAM wants to switch to southern sections of Indiana and northern sections of Kentucky to just a cold rain. So y'all might get a break from the nastier ice storm potential with this storm. But you're looking into here, you're looking into the Ohio Valley in general for your later in your Thursday evening. If you freeze it right here, freezing rain ongoing in those areas I just mentioned, freezing rain moving into areas of Pittsburgh, sleet into Pennsylvania, sleet into central Indiana, all snow for Chicago, all snow for southern Michigan. Columbus, for example, Columbus, Ohio would have freezing rain if the NAM was correct. Dayton, Ohio would probably be more a little bit of freezing rain and rain mix. Cleveland, probably a sleet fest per the latest NAM. That's just one model, Indiana, be careful. Indianapolis would just be a mixture of everything. And I really think that's going to be the case. You continue to keep this going forward and it moves on out. Low pressure is just not favorable for all snow in the Ohio Valley. It really is not. GFS, same kind of deal, puts that system on out of here. Then we freeze it and we get into Wednesday evening. Here comes an area of moisture moving into the southern sections of the Ohio Valley, getting into northern mid-south. But you notice you freeze it Thursday morning, not really much going on. Therefore, you look at the NAM, there's already moisture into this area. You're getting into Thursday late morning, Thursday afternoon, and there's a little bit of frozen precipitation Thursday afternoon into these sections of the country right here in Maryland, the tail of West Virginia and northern VA, and maybe in the southern Pennsylvania, but not a lot. The bulk of the storm moves in Thursday afternoon, heavy snow into central Illinois. Per the latest GFS, heavy snow moves into Indianapolis, Indiana. All rain showing up for southern areas of Indiana, southern areas of Illinois. This continues to move forward into Thursday evening. All-out ice storm breaking out in south central Indiana and Ohio and southern areas of Illinois. But all rain in the far southern counties of every state I just mentioned. All rain in Kentucky. But the GFS, if it is correct, is what I'm trying to say, this would be a heavy band of snow just north of the mixing line as we're getting into Thursday evening, late Thursday afternoon. So we have to watch that for places like Cleveland that could be very close to mixing with sleet and freezing rain, but could be just north enough to see a heavy band of snow potentially. But a lot of ice showing up in Ohio. A lot of ice showing up as we get late evening into overnight. Really, this is late evening, Thursday night, into these areas of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and even northern Virginia, starting to see a little bit of ice creep in. Washington, D.C., a little bit of ice. This continues. Ice continues overnight. It continues into Friday morning. It might switch to snow where it's all freezing rain, but really a nasty ice storm showing up for areas of south central Indiana, central Ohio, and areas of south central Illinois and southern portions of Illinois. I think it's going to be a lot of ice and a lot of freezing rain. You look at the European, we'll have to pick up the pace here, or this is going to end up being a 45-minute video here. Here comes this push of moisture as we're getting into late Wednesday evening. Per the latest Euro, this really holds together. If the Euro is correct, we could have freezing rain well into Kentucky, freezing rain into the northwest portion of Tennessee, freezing rain breaking out overnight Wednesday night into Thursday morning into southern sections of Illinois and Indiana. And then it fizzles out, and then another area of moisture starts to work in Thursday afternoon and midday into afternoon. A heavy push of freezing rain into southeast Missouri, all snow for Illinois. And then the main difference I'm seeing right now, there's a huge difference between the European model and the GFS. The European doesn't like the idea of a lot of ice in general in the Ohio Valley. The GFS and the NAM love the idea of a lot of ice. So there's big differences here. So the National Weather Service in general is not forecasting a lot of ice in Ohio. There really aren't. So take that for as you will. National Weather Service, here you go. Here goes all that snow showing up for the Ohio Valley. Just a few inches of snow basically forecasted. Cleveland forecasted, 3 to 4 inches of snow. Chicago, 3 to 4 inches of snow. And then northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and central and northern Illinois. And, just a few inches of snow. Nothing crazy snow-wise. You look at the freezing rain totals per the National Weather Service. And we'll switch this on through. Look at these areas. It's weird to me. It's going to be interesting to see for you folks in Ohio if this adjusts higher, because right now it's showing the worst ice as far as the Ohio Valley in Ohio, but the National Weather Service is forecasting the least amount of ice for Ohio in the Ohio Valley in general. So I don't know if this is going to trend up. I don't know if the National Weather Service just isn't buying all that ice, but they sure are buying it for Pennsylvania as things are beginning to trend upwards as far as ice in this region. So I'm a little confused about that, but the National Weather Service pretty much agrees, and the National Blend of Models pretty much agrees with the National Weather Service for these areas. As far as snowfall totals, not a big time difference. You look at ice totals, and it shows that ice in Ohio. It doesn't show a quarter to a half inch, but it shows what we've been talking about. It shows ice into northern Kentucky. I don't think there's going to be a lot of ice in northern Kentucky, but I think the far northern sections and western sections of Kentucky could definitely see a little bit of ice for sure. So we have to watch out what's going to happen here, how this is going to unfold as far as ice and how it's going to develop, how the National Weather Service reacts to this. So let's go on and talk about the Northeast. And I'm running out of gas, but I feel like the Northeast is a big topic in this video, so I'm going to definitely keep pushing through here. As you know, you've been dealing with rain in the Northeast. We'll continue to deal with it overnight. Ice for northern Maine. As we get down, and I'm looking at the NAM 12 km right now. Just the NAM, then we're going to look at the GFS and the European. As we're moving forward here, cold air begins to work its way in. As you're working into overnight Wednesday into Thursday night, getting into Thursday morning. Thursday midday, you start to get sleet breaking out in Washington, D.C. Ice pretty deep into Virginia per the latest NAM. How reliable is the NAM? I don't know. I would venture to say that it's probably overdoing things as far as cold air. But it wants to bring, as you get into Thursday afternoon, the northern mid-Atlantic, the southern northeast area, southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, the parts of the Delaware, southern New Jersey, northern VA, basically the entire northern sections of West Virginia, its own winter weather event on its own Thursday afternoon. It begins to fizzle out, and then the main system moves in. Starts out as freezing rain in Pittsburgh, a sleet fest showing up in central Pennsylvania, a good thumping of snow. Guys, I'm telling you right now, all sleet showing up in New York City. I'm telling you, I really think some kind of heavy banding of snow, some kind of frontogenesis, a big thump of snow is going to move into areas of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts here. Excuse me if I said the state wrong, guys. My bad. Boston. I really think Boston's going to get hit hard with several inches of snow before this potentially switches to sleet as you get later in the day Friday. But Friday morning, I think it's going to be absolutely puking snow in areas like Boston, as warm air advection basically moisturizes that column, and basically them DBZs and that sounding, it's just going to be dumping snow is what I'm trying to say. And I think there'll be a lot of rapid accumulation occurring. But look at all this sleet in southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island. A lot of sleet. This is heavy sleet. And this sleet is even getting into the interior areas of New York State. This continued to move through. Heavy snow for Vermont, New Hampshire, northern sections of New York State. This continues to move northward. It turns to all sleet for Friday midday for Boston. Maybe freezing rain into Connecticut and into Rhode Island. And then it might switch to rain for areas of Connecticut and areas of far southern areas of New England. So heavy snow for areas of Maine. Y'all are going to stay all snow, I think, for almost the entire state of Maine. And then this moves out as you get into overnight and getting into your weekend. GFS, what does the GFS look like? Well, here we go. We're rolling through this. It shows that that little bit of frozen precipitation into this region right here as we're getting into Thursday evening. But shows a brief burst of freezing rain as you're getting late Thursday evening. And then it switches to all rain for Washington, D.C. Then you're getting into the early morning hours Friday. I'm talking about 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe a burst of snow per the GFS overnight Thursday into Friday. And then it switches to sleet, then potentially freezing rain, then potentially rain per the latest GFS. But I really think, like I said, GFS, heavy snow for Boston, New England, Connecticut, heavy snow. Switches to sleet and freezing rain as you get later in the morning for southern New England. Nasty freezing rain showing up for Pennsylvania. For Pittsburgh, for example, you guys can start off freezing rain, some sleet, maybe a burst of snow, then switch to all rain as you're getting in late Thursday night into Friday morning. This continues to move through. Low pressure kind of transitions itself way over here from being over here. Therefore, you don't have a low pressure plowing into the northeast and a lot of warm air to deal with. So y'all stay all snow. But Boston could be a lot of heavy snow, but then it could switch to a little bit of sleet, maybe a mixture of precipitation, and then you get into Friday night and then Saturday, and then it pulls on off. Very impactful event. European, all rain tonight. Here it comes. Here comes our system. Watch this little area right here. It could be a teaser event. Washington, D.C. could see a burst of, I wouldn't even call it a burst, but some light snow, freezing rain, or sleet. I really think Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, that moves through. Here comes the bulk of the storm. The Euro is not as amplified, but it's starting to trend a little further south. So I'll freeze here. This is about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning. Freezing rain into Pittsburgh, freezing rain into southern Pennsylvania, heavy snow into areas of northern Pennsylvania, heavy snow into northern New Jersey, heavy snow into New York City, moderate to heavy snow into Long Island. The snow's starting to move into southern New England, and we switch it to around Friday as everybody's waking up Eastern Standard Time. And then we have heavy snow still falling in New York City, but it's beginning to mix with sleet and freezing rain. Ongoing ice storm in Pennsylvania, and I think this is going to be somewhat of an ice storm in a lot of Pennsylvania. I think Pittsburgh, I think y'all were lucky out and start to mix with a lot of rain just due to the position of the low pressure as it's transitioning off the coast of the Northeast. But I really think Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and all the interior areas of Northeast is going to be a big and impactful winter storm. We're getting into later midday Friday, heavy snow falling in all of New England. But sleet and freezing rain beginning to creep into Connecticut. New York City could have maybe some significant icing in New York City, areas of Long Island. We got to watch to see how this unfolds. But the heavy snow continues in Boston. So let's take a look at the National Weather Service. This takes us all the way out until Friday evening. It's probably still snowing in certain areas. But Boston, in fact, the National Weather Service in Boston is predicting 8 to 12 inches right now. A little bit lesser amounts in Connecticut. If you're northern, I really think Connecticut will be kind of a state where if you're in those northern sections of the state, even though it's a small state, that the distance just in these areas in southern New England and southern areas of the Northeast make all the difference here. You know, you look at the National Weather Service for Long Island, maybe it's only 1 to 2 inches. But then you get into Connecticut, the coastline, maybe 2 to 4 inches. But then you get into northern Connecticut and Rhode Island, for example, maybe 4 to 6, 6 to 7, 8 inches of snow. Then as you get into more interior areas, you get well over a foot, I think, in areas is definitely possible. Look at these freezing rain totals. And let's make sure we're at the latest one. Look at these freezing rain totals. And it's not a lot, but you're starting to get a solid glaze in New York City. Some nasty ice showing up in areas of Pennsylvania. You got to watch out. These higher elevations where cold air can get entrenched, and a little bit of cold air damming can settle up. You can get some elevated freezing rain areas right into here. One thing I'm going to show you here is some sleet here in a second. The National Blend of Models pretty much agrees with the National Weather Service. But I want to show you sleet totals here in a second. But let's look at ice totals for the National Blend of Models. Shows pretty much the same thing. That little area right in here, some higher ice totals just east of Pennsylvania in these higher elevations in these valleys where cold air can get entrenched. But a glaze of ice is definitely possible right into this area. But sleet, there is going to be a lot of sleet in this system in general. But I really think there's a chance for a lot of sleet into the northeast Pennsylvania. And I'm just looking at the European, for example. I think there could be anywhere from, some folks could see an inch of sleet. And I know you're thinking, well, an inch of anything doesn't sound like a lot. An inch of sleet is a lot of sleet, guys. Sleet is very small, and it takes an insane amount of time to pile up. We had 2.5, 3 inches of sleet here in Columbia in 2014 with a winter storm one time, and it sleeted for about 7 or 8 hours straight, and it only accumulated, and it sleeted heavy too. And it only accumulated to about 2.5, 3 inches. So that tells you how slow sleet accumulates. And sleet can be very dangerous on the roads too. It doesn't stick on the trees, but the roads, sleet is very slick. So stay safe out there. 32-minute video. It didn't quite break my record. Dang. But hopefully this was informative. If y'all got any questions, ask in the comments, and I'll definitely answer them very early in the morning tomorrow morning. And I'll definitely get y'all some solid answers. So God bless everybody. Stay safe out there. Hope you guys got some generators powered up. And like I said, God bless everybody. Stay safe.